WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for June 21st, 2024. We're going to be looking at the fantasy football ADP for 2024. Going to be discussing who's going too early, who's going too late, going to have an interesting breakdown here. Before we introduce our co-host tonight, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. As discussed all week, we have all 6 Deadly Sins t-shirts here available now. You can browse through our merch store. It's the links in the description. There's a lot of options here. We had a lot of good interactions. I was wearing this money laundering t-shirt at the gym, and 2 guys stopped me. They're like, "That's the coolest shirt I've ever seen." So there's that. And I've been asking every co-host, Ben. Let's get your take on this. August is Gluttony Month. This is supposed to be me. Do you think this bears any resemblance to me? Outside of the blue hair and the blue beard. I don't know why this person has blue hair, blue beard.
There's only one way we can possibly find out, and that's for you to dye your hair and your beard blue. So I feel like that needs to happen tomorrow. Blue hair and beard, and then we'll all know.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, this is basically me during August doing fantasy drafts or fantasy mock drafts with eating cheese donuts out of popcorn bags for some reason and cupcakes. This is what ChatGPT gave me, so that's the best we came up with. But you can find all these shirts on the merch store. So supporting us that way would be great. Also, there are super chats, super stickers. It's a great way to support the show as well. We've had the past 2 nights, we've had super chats from John Sanders helping us out. I say this all the time. YouTube ads pay absolutely nothing. So if you really want to help support the show, keep it going. Super chats, super stickers is a great way to do that. You could also buy my book on Amazon. It is called Jerks of the College Years. It's basically Jerks of the Week. But for my college years, I spent 6 years at Penn State. So as you can see here with the cover, I ran into a lot of weird people over the course of those 6 years. So without further ado, our co-host tonight, Ben Wassley from FFD. Hold on a second. Let me find fantasyfirstdown.com. Let me find the link here. I have so many, so many links I can't find it. I had it up earlier. What'd you say?
You always say you know where they all are. I can't believe you've lost it.
There it is. FFDfantasyfootball.com. So, Ben, how are you?
Sorry, I lost you for the worst possible moment in time. I'm good. I'm on holidays at the moment. My normal job is a teacher, and it's school holidays over here. So I am living my best life, doing fantasy rankings during the day, and then doing more fantasy rankings during the night. It is going well. I've watched so much TV and done so many fantasy rankings. It has been fantastic this week.
Nice. You can find all of Ben's work here on FFDfantasyfootball.com. Here's the link, by the way. It was, I don't know, the icon didn't show up. That's what threw me off. But I guess when you have 80 tabs open, the icons stop showing up. So that tends to happen. But yeah, you can find lots of great content here. If you guys have heard Ben before on the show, the content is top notch. So I urge you guys to check out FFDfantasyfootball.com. But yeah, let's get into this. So these ADP rankings are according to Fantasy Pros. I guess probably the most trusted source out there. You can find other ADPs like Underdog has ADP, but that's best ball. There's basically some mock draft sites out there that have ADP as well, but sometimes the computer drafts too often and you get some weird results. So we're going to go round by round here. So 12 at a time because most leagues are 12 people. We sort of did something similar last night with the fantasy football mock draft from ESPN. But I think this is a little bit different for 2 reasons. One, I mean, this is just straight ADP. This is not like weirdos drafting stuff. Like you're not going to get, well, at least I hope not. We're going to get Jonathan Brooks in the 5th round, like some guy drafted on ESPN. And also this is a standard scoring. This is not PPR. Whereas last night we had a PPR mock draft. So it's good. It's going to be different for sure. So so let's talk about this first round here, the top 12. We have Christian McCaffrey at number 1, number 2, CeeDee Lamb, 3 is Tyreek Hill, 4 Breece Hall, 5 Jamar Chase, 6, Justin Jefferson, 7, Bijan Robinson, 8, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 9, A.J. Brown, 10, Puka Nacua, 11, Saquon Barkley, 12, Jonathan Taylor. Then does anything stand out to you as like this guy's like way too high? I mean, or way too early. Like, what do you think about this top 12?
I mean, the biggest thing that jumps out to me is, gosh, I really want one of those first 2 picks. I usually, as a general rule, prefer to pick in the middle of rounds. I feel like anywhere between 5 and 8 sort of region, I'm going to get value most of the time on the way back. When you're at one of the ends, it's not ideal because most picks, there's like 20-something picks between 2 of your picks, and most of the players falling won't get to you. And then there's hardly any picks between your next 2 picks, and there's no chance for you to get any value. Whereas when you're in the middle, there's a lot of opportunities for value. This year, on the other hand, I like Christian McCaffrey so much more than everyone else. And I like CD Lamb and Tyreek Hill a lot as well. And that means that I really do want one of those top couple of picks, which isn't always the case most years. A lot of the time, you can find a little bit more value there. But it feels like there's a fair bit of a drop-off even within those first 12 picks.
Interesting. So you're not a believer in the Madden curse, I take it, with the McCaffrey being on the cover.
Hey, you know what I'm really excited about? And I was going to ask you about this. Less than a month until EA Sports College Football 25. Will you be playing that?
Well, if it was back in the day when I didn't have kids, yes, I would be playing it all night. But these days, I barely have time to play video games. But I will try. I will definitely try to play a little bit at the very least, because I used to love the old college football video games. I used to take over a team. Usually, like it would be a dumb team like Ohio University or Montana State. And I would just get them to number 1, within like the 3 years or something like that. And I don't know. I'm sure they're going to fix it, but they used to, like, the computer never would be able to defend the jet sweep. So like I'll just run the ball every single play. And I don't know. I guess that was not really fun at the end, but it was fun initially. But I eventually like to simulate games and stuff like that, and just like try to kind of build up my program. So I imagine I will buy the game, but my playing time will be limited. I assume you're going to be playing, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got nothing else to do with my time except do fantasy rankings and play college football, so I'm definitely keen for it. I think it's going to be fun. I've been wanting to play one for a long time, and I haven't had the right console at the right time, so I'm very keen. But now that I'm actually in college football, when they're making college football games, I'm very excited.
Is it? I assume it's PS5, right? But is it going to be on
Xbox Series X? I think.
Do you know if it's going to be on PS? Do you know if it's going to be a PS4? That's what I have. I don't have PS5 yet.
I don't know, but I assume so. A lot of the stuff is backwards compatible these days, so I would assume it is. Every other game I've had has been back a generation, so I assume it would be as well.
Okay. Well, I hope so. I mean, I'll get a PS5 eventually, but it's kind of lazy. With it's funny. I had a guest on a few weeks ago. Nifrol is one of my best friends. I said I don't have a PS5. He's like, why don't you get one? I'm like, oh, my setup here. I have the PS3 downstairs. My wife uses it for exercise videos. I have a PS4 upstairs. It's all connected. Like, if I feel like I get a PS5, I have to like change everything to put the PS4 down here. My wife's gonna be mad because her exercise video is not gonna be on there. It's just like a whole headache. It's like, what do I do with the old consoles? So, yeah, it's it's kind of stress we have here. Matthias says CD at receiver 1 LMAO. I hope someone in my league does that. So he's Matthiason's our resident Vikings fan. So I assume he'd want to have Justin Jefferson over CeeDee Lamb, and talent wise, you could argue that, but the quarterback is going to be the tiebreaker there with JJ McCarthy being a rookie or Sam Darnold struggling throughout his career. It's hard to justify Jefferson over Lamb, but they are close. I mean, they are 4 picks apart. So. And then you have Tyreek Hill. You mentioned you love Tyreek Hill as well. So maybe Matthiason likes Tyreek Hill more.
Yeah, I can definitely understand the argument for having Tyreek Hill over CeeDee Lamb, even though Lamb was arguably better last year. And Hill at some point is going to hit that drop-off where he's going to start to struggle a little bit more. He's getting a little bit older, and that happens to all players at some point in time. You don't know when it's going to be. And there's more risk of that happening with Hill than with Lamb. There's also a fair bit more target competition there than there is for Lamb, who's really got Brandon Cooks and Jalen Tolbert as the other wide receivers. They're going to have to throw to somebody, and they like to throw a lot in Dallas. I feel like Lamb's probably the safest. And I think you hit the nail on the head with Jefferson. The QB situation makes me really nervous. We saw Jamar Chase last year when he didn't have Joe Burrow. All of a sudden, he's not even a wide receiver 1 anymore. He's more like in that next 12 guys. So I feel like the same could happen with Jefferson this year, not to the same extent, but we haven't seen JJ McCarthy play in any sort of aggressive quarterback situation. Like, we've seen him in a situation where they're running the ball a lot and he's nearly a system quarterback. I don't really know how he's going to go if they expect him to throw the ball a lot. And if they're not throwing the ball a lot, is Jefferson going to be able to produce at the same level? That makes me really nervous.
Yeah, if it's Darnold, I actually don't have an issue with that because we saw Jefferson produce with Nick Mullins last year, and I think that as Matthias says here, JJ is quarterback proof, and I agree with that. However, McCarthy is a rookie, so they may want to be more conservative with him, just kind of protect him. So there may not be as many passing opportunities. So I think he may struggle from that regard. So yeah, I could definitely see the argument. I mean, I still think like Jefferson's still a first round pick to me. But I'd rather have CeeDee Lamb at this point, but who knows? I mean, maybe McCarthy's going to be really good. And then Jefferson will be a great option this year. And he could be the receiver 1 overall for sure. Dick Togo says Bijan is a top 3 pick. Fade CMC and go Bijan, Breece early. I love Breece Hall personally. I would take him number 2 overall. I just think that the running backs are thinner this year than receiver from what we saw in yesterday's mock draft. That maybe standards can be different, but I like Breece Hall to me, like what he did receiving wise last year, like really reminded me of Marshall Faulk, like the type of numbers that Faulk used to produce as a receiver out of the backfield. Like that's what Breece Hall was doing. And now he's going to be 2 years removed from the 20 ACL. So he's going to get the full workload this year. And they upgraded the offensive line. They got Tyron Smith. They got Olu Fashanu. Elijah Vera Tucker is back from injury. I think I love Breece Hall. So I would take him number 2 over the receivers. But I can understand the case to take one of those elite receivers early on.
Yeah, I don't mind the argument of taking Hall a little bit earlier, depending on how you're planning on setting up your team. I think there is still some risk there with any running back in particular. I feel like you've just got a more reliable source of points every week if you've got Lamb or Hill. I think Hall's going to have those dud games more often than a Lamb or a Hill will, and he's not necessarily going to have the same amount of boom games. He's going to be a little bit more dependent on game flow than someone like Lamb or Hill will be. But look, I'm happy to take Hall with those second or third pick. I'm happy to consider Bijan, but I think taking either of them over CMC is getting way too cute. CMC is legitimately the best player in football at the moment in an attacking sense. And I feel like you have to take him first overall. If you're doing something else, you're just hoping that something different happens. And I'm not willing to take that risk. I think it's getting too cute.
Mm-hmm. Something else I noticed here, I'd rather have Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor over the receivers there, like Puka Nacua. I love Puka Nacua. I love AJ Brown. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, but especially in standard scoring, I love those 2 guys. Barkley's going to be playing behind the offensive line, the best offensive line he's ever seen. And then Taylor, he's not going to have the holdout issues that he had last year. Remember, he held out and then he got hurt and then got hurt again. So I love those 2 guys. I will take him in the middle of the first round for sure. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it really depends on your roster construction. So there's going to be situations where you're in a league where you've got, say, two running backs, but 3 wide receivers and maybe a couple of flex spots. In those situations, wide receivers increase in value. Whereas if you've only got 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex spot, all of a sudden you can afford to take those running backs earlier because they're going to increase in value relative to the wide receivers. It's hard to know exactly what ADP is based on because everyone's league is going to be different, but you'd want to look at your league settings and think about where the value of each player lies because that's going to really dictate who you're taking in these sort of ranges where those players could legitimately go either way. I definitely do like the fact that those running backs are available late in the first round, whereas you're not going to get quality running backs a couple of rounds later. You're still going to get quality wide receivers. So I can definitely see the argument. It's just going to depend on roster construction a little bit.
Makes sense. Parrot says, I don't know, man. I get it. Believe me, he's got a cap ceiling, but did JJ not prove it last year with Dobbs and Mullins as his QB? And no TJ Hawkinson for the majority of the year. So that's why I said I'm fine with Jefferson with Sam Darnold there, but I think that they may protect JJ McCarthy a little bit more. So if he's named the starter, I'm going to be a little bit less bullish than Jefferson. Like I still would take him in the first round, but I would prefer Darnold because I think they'd be more comfortable with his experience, kind of like they were with Dobbs and Mullins, So we haven't seen McCarthy play. That's the big question mark. Whereas like we saw Dobbs at least a little bit at the end of 2022. We saw Mullins for sure in the past. He started several games. But yeah, we just don't know what we're going to get out of McCarthy. And it could be great. Like, it could get Jefferson to being the receiver one, but we just don't know. It's like the big unknown there.
I mean, Mullins is a pretty aggressive quarterback. He's very willing to put it into tight windows. He's very willing to take risks. And that's why he's not a very good quarterback, because he turns the ball over a lot. But that's fantastic for fantasy. It's not surprising that Jefferson was good with Mullins, but he may be going into a situation where they are more cautious. They've got better running backs. Last year, they couldn't rely on Alexander Mattison because he was getting under 3 yards a carry. This time, they've got Aaron Jones, who's legitimately a really good passing back and also going to be good with checkdowns and things like that. I feel like they're going to have a bit more of a run game. They won't need to rely on the passing game as much. There's a lot more risk there than just saying, oh, he's quarterback proof. No wide receiver is quarterback proof. If you have a bad quarterback, it doesn't matter how good your wide receivers are. He's not going to be able to get the ball to him, and his OC is not going to trust him to throw the ball.
Yeah, and I think that applies more with the lack of experience. Dick Toga says Mullen was throwing hospital balls at the end of the year. Yeah, he's getting people killed. John says Nathaniel Hackett's still the OC. Unfortunately, yes, with an asterisk, because I would say as long as Aaron Rodgers is playing, he's really the OC. And we've seen Rodgers succeed with Hackett before, so I'm not concerned. As long as Rodgers is under center, I'm not concerned about the Jets offense. Now, Rodgers gets hurt, then we're going to see what we had last year. Dynasty says it's all about value. As Walter says, CD at receiver one is no value. I think anyone at whatever one is no value. I mean, they're the top of the charts, so you're not going to get a bargain. And then Hill, Chase, JJ, a few others could be receiver one at the end of the season. Yeah, I mean, I think you can make a case for a few guys. Certainly Lamb, Hill, Chase, Justin Jefferson, even like remember AJ Brown, first half of last season, he was keeping pace with Tyreek Hill for a while, and then that offense kind of struggled toward the end. But with Saquon Barkley there, I think Brown could have an amazing season. So I think he's another guy who could be in the mix. So yeah, I mean it's definitely up in the air as to who's going to be the receiver one. But I think that either Lamb or Hill should be the favorite right now, given the QB situation. But I think Chase is right there too, as long as Burrows is healthy,
Yeah, look, it's true. Any of them could finish as the wide receiver one, but you've got to think about what the odds of each of those things happening are. And you've also got to think about where the floor is. You don't often win your league with your first overall pick, but you can definitely lose it. Firstly, they just get injured, and that's bad luck. But also, if you pick a first-round pick and they're a dud, then you're far more likely to struggle than if you just pick a good solid option and then find value later on. I think that's a far better way of going about it. I just feel like Lamb and Hill are significantly safer.
Yeah, I say that all the time. Yeah, like you can't win your league in the first couple of rounds. You can lose it. So you don't want to take risky guys because like chances are a lot of your league mates are going to get studs in the first couple of rounds anyway. Like you win your draft in the middle and late rounds, just getting good sleepers who hit. Dick says, have pick one in a 12-team PPR, seriously leaning Hill, Bijan, and Hall over CMC. Just don't trust the mileage with CMC. He's 28. That's the classic fall off. Yeah, I get that argument for sure. And like but I think you can make a bear case for any running back, really. Let's run down the list in the first round. You have McCaffrey with the mileage he's had in injury history. Breece Hall, 2 years removed from a torn ACL. Maybe his knee is not 100%. Bijan's going to be playing in a new offense. Who knows? Maybe he doesn't fit in there. I think he will, but who knows? You have Saquon Barkley, who also had a torn ACL in the past, and he's going to be playing in a new offense. Maybe he doesn't gel. Jonathan Taylor, what if Anthony Richardson steals all the rushing touchdowns? Jahmyr Gibbs, what if Dave Montgomery takes all the rushing touchdowns? Like, I think you can make a bear case for any running back, and that comes with the position. It's so much variance there. But McCaffrey at his best is going to be the best player. No, that I get it. I get the mileage, and like that's definitely a concern. But I still would take him number one as well. I agree with Ben.
Yep, totally agree. I have McCaffrey so far above everybody else. It's not funny just because he's so safe. I agree that he is at some stage going to fall off, but there's a long way that he can fall off and still be the number one. You've also got to think Brees Hall, there's a lot of risk there. They drafted 2 running backs this year. They're not thinking about giving him a really heavy load. They're going to use Braylon Allen a little bit. They're liking what they see from OTAs in him. He's going to be involved. And the worst thing about Allen is he's a good goal line back. So it's not impossible that Brees Hall loses the goal line carries and they give a lot more of that short yardage stuff to Allen. So there's risk with everybody, but McCaffrey has so much less risk. You know that offense is going to be good. It doesn't rely on a good quarterback to be good. And you know that he's going to get touches and a lot of receiving touches as well.
Yeah. Dick says, I went back to 2013. The consensus top picks only hit 2 times out of 11. 2016, Antonio Brown. 2019, CMC. Rather go young with Bijan or Brees. Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. I like running backs tend to get hurt a lot, so it's tough for them to hold on to that number one spot. But I do think, again, I think CMC has the better upside. But I can understand the argument to go Bijan, Brees. Like I don't think it's like locked in McCaffrey number one, because again, you can make a bear case for him, but you can make the bear case for everyone. So it's like I would take McCaffrey to 1, but I get the arguments otherwise. John McGlynn says Chris Olave has at least a fighter's chance to be the receiver 1. Maybe. I love Olave's talent. It just I don't love Derek Carr, but there's not much else at receiver there. So yeah, I could see it. Like if he's receiver 1 at the end of the year, like I wouldn't be like, wow, I can't believe that happened, you know. But there's so many other good options that I'd take over him.
I think there's less than a 50% chance that McCaffrey's the top overall player at the end of the year, but that's still a far higher chance than any other individual player. You're not selecting him against the field. You're selecting him against a whole heap of individuals. So he might have a 40% chance as being the number one option overall, but every other player has a less than 20% chance. Why would you select one of those guys when you don't know that they're definitely going to be the best player overall? You just know that McCaffrey's got some risk, but everyone else has significantly less upside and nearly just as much risk.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And John's saying similar argument to avoid CMC last year. Yeah, everyone, that's what people are saying. Like, oh, McCaffrey always gets hurt. And, he didn't get hurt. He got banged up in the Redskins game in week 17, but otherwise he was on the field all the time. All right, let's get to 13 through 24. Second round, Jahmyr Gibbs at 13, 14, Garrett Wilson, 15, Devontae Adams, 16, Josh Allen, 17, Kyron Williams, 18, Travis Etienne, 19, Marvin Harrison Jr., first rookie here at 19, 20, Chris Olave, just talked about him, 21, Devon Achane, 22, Sam Laporta. Wow, it's higher than I thought. 23, Nico Collins, and 24, Michael Pittman Jr. Ben, any thoughts on these round 2 ADPs?
I think you hit the nail on the head with Sam Laporta. That feels really early, given how many good tight ends there are at the moment. A couple of years ago, you really wanted one of the top couple of tight ends because there was so little depth at the position. Now there's legitimately 12 guys you could comfortably start and feel okay about selecting. You can get Jake Ferguson as the 11th or 12th tight end off the board, and he's a totally functional starting tight end in fantasy, and there's plenty of lower guys with upside. So I don't feel like you need to reach for guys anymore like we've needed to do with Travis Kelce over the last couple of years. I'm also pretty nervous about Nico Collins there. I know there's upside, but they brought on Stephon Diggs. We know that Tank Dell is really liked by CJ Stroud as well. I just feel like that target competition makes me nervous compared to a lot of the other guys there. So I am concerned about him. The guy I really like the value with there is Travis Etienne. We saw he was the number 2 running back overall last year. Getting him an 18 overall is pretty good. I know they're going to limit his carries a little bit, but you know what? They said the same thing last preseason, and we saw what ended up happening. So I would happily take Etienne anywhere in that range.
Interesting. We had Kenny on last night. He hates ETN. So I'd love to hear a debate between you guys. I'm so neutral on ETN. Like I'm like I don't like him. I don't hate him. He's just like pretty. He's like meatloaf for me in round 2. It's like I get it. I'm fine with it. I'm not going to order at a restaurant, but if I get it for dinner, I'm okay with it. Marvin Harrison Jr. I get the talent there, and he could certainly pay that off. He could be a top 12 player by the end of the year. First of all, we've never seen him play, and second, do we think Kyler Murray is going to play the whole year? Because if he doesn't, it's going to be Desmond Ridder, and Murray has never lasted a whole season. So I think Harrison Jr. in the second round is too early. In the draft we reviewed last night, Malik Neighbors is in the fourth round. So I'd rather if you're going to take a rookie receiver, I would rather have Neighbors in the fourth than Harrison in the second, even though Daniel Jones sucks as well. So there's that. Go ahead. So go ahead. What'd you say?
Yeah, I was about to say exactly the same thing. I would much rather have Neighbors a couple of rounds later. They're in a very similar situation.
Yeah. I think that's a little too early there. Devon Achane, I get the upside, and if this is a best ball, then sure. But there are going to be games where he gets like 8 carries, 10 carries. Like Miami has 5 running backs, like they legitimately give carries to. Maybe I guess maybe 4. I won't count Salvan Ahmed, but they have Raheem Mostert, they have Jalen Wright, they have Achane, and then they have Jeff Wilson Jr. Like all these guys get carries, and Mike McDaniel loves to spread the ball around. And Achane's going to have a couple of huge games because he's just going to break them. He's going to break long runs, and he's going to get like 40 drafting points, and like everyone's going to be like, "Oh, why didn't I play this guy?" And then you'll play him, and the next week he'll score 5 points. There's a ton of variance with him. Second round is way too early for me. I would never take him this early. What do you think about Achane?
100% agree. Way too early for him. You're paying for production that you're not going to get half the time. And those weeks where you don't get that production, it's going to absolutely kill you. Most of these guys are going to be getting you double-digit points pretty much every week. Achane's going to get you single-digit points half of the weeks of the year. That's too much. They brought in another running back. They're clearly not settled on having one guy go the whole time. They want to have a committee. I wouldn't take Achane within 12 picks of this.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. Matthiasen asking, why is Olave there? Am I missing something? Well, he's the undoubted receiver 1 with the Saints. Now, Derek Carr is not going to impress anyone, but Olave had a great year last year. And I just feel like why wouldn't he have another great year? I think he's just a stud. The quarterback situation is not ideal, but it's not horrible either. So like Derek Carr can carry Olave to a second round ADP, like no problem. I think if anything, Olave's going a little too late. I would take him I would consider him like early to mid second round. I would take him over. I would take him over Marvin Harrison Jr. I would take him over ATN. I would take him over Josh Allen for sure. We get to Allen in a second. I don't know about Devontae Adams. Gardner Minshew scares me a little bit. But yeah, I think I would consider him over Adams. I would take Garrett Wilson over him. So like probably 15 or 16. That's where I'd put him. So
yeah, they last year they had Michael Thomas there, and Michael Thomas got a reasonable amount of targets, and Olave was still the clear number 1 guy. They don't have Michael Thomas there anymore, and they didn't replace him with anybody. They drafted Bub Means in the 5th round. He probably is not even going to be on the roster. They realistically only have Chris Olave, a little bit of Rashid Shaheed, but he's an undrafted free agent. He's not a top-tier guy. It's going to be Olave. It's going to be the running backs. You'll see a little bit of Taysom Hill and the tight ends. But realistically, this offense needs to go through Olave, and the defense isn't enough to keep the opposing offense off the field. They're going to need to score points, and so Olave is going to get a lot of touches.
Yeah, for sure. John said Kenny would love taking Josh Allen in the second round. Kenny's famous for not drafting quarterbacks at all. Like the first fantasy league I was in with Kenny was 2000, like he didn't take a quarterback until round 13, and he drafted Dante Culpepper, and then he took Jeff Garcia, and he ended up winning the league because he had two studs at the end. And the entire draft, like after round 8, people are like, Kenny, why haven't you taken a quarterback yet? Your team's gonna suck. And like he had the last laugh. So Kenny and I usually we've been in the same league together since 2000. We usually have a race to see who's going to be the last team to take a quarterback and also tight end. It's almost like a game of chicken, like toward the end. So, but yeah, so Josh Allen, any quarterback second round would completely stay away from. Running backs, receivers are so thin this year compared to quarterbacks.
I think it depends a little bit on your roster construction. If you've got 6-point passing touchdowns and you only start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a single flex, there is an argument to take Allen kind of later second round, because if you compare the value you're going to get from him above the 12th ranked quarterback, and you take that and compare it from the wide receiver, wide receiver 9 to wide receiver 40 odd, even 30 something, because that's realistically how many guys you're going to be starting. The amount of points you're going to get from Allen compared to those lower guys is going to be significantly higher, and he's safer. He's been so consistently a top 2 quarterback. So I think there are situations where you can take him early, but if you're not taking him there, then I'm definitely waiting on quarterback. I'm parabolic with quarterbacks. I'll either take one early if the league settings are good, or I'll take one late like Kenny.
I think for me, if it's 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and a flex, I still wouldn't take one. But if there's no flex at all, then suddenly it would enter the conversation of round 2. But I still think like there's just so many quarterbacks out there, and I feel like it's so easy just to play matchups. I tell the story all the time. Back during Lamar Jackson's MVP run, I forget who my quarterback was, but he got hurt. And so I was just picking guys up off the waiver wire, starting new ones every week. And in the 3 playoff rounds, I started Daniel Jones, and then Eli Manning. And in the championship game, I had Eli Manning against Lamar Jackson. And Eli Manning, because he was playing the Redskins, he almost outscored Lamar Jackson and ended up winning the league. So I think like if you know what you're doing and you can play quarterback matchups really well, I think you can get away with it and just stack up on running backs and receivers. That's something I like to do. Now, if you get a great bargain, then yeah, you can make an adjustment. Like for me, if Josh Allen, not that this would happen, but Josh Allen's available in like the 5th round, I'll definitely take him. Like I'm not going to pass on him just because I want to play matchups. But second round for any quarterback, I think I just couldn't do it unless, like I said, if it's no flex or anything like that. I think what you said is totally correct. It really depends on your roster construction for your league.
And also your league size as well. If you've only in like a 10 or 8 team league, and I know most leagues are 12 or more, but if you're in 8 or 10 team leagues, you want those elite guys at every position, because the difference between them and the 8th ranked guy is going to be so much more than the difference between the 12th ranked wide receiver and the 30th wide receiver, for example.
Right. John says Miami has more running backs than the number of Phillip Rivers' kids. And then Sue says the Bills have more receivers than Phillip Rivers' kids. That's definitely true. Mike says Desmond Ridder, a name you don't want to hear in a fantasy football discussion. Well, you're going to hear it because Kyler Murray can't stay healthy. So Ridder will start some games this year. It's a matter of whether it's 1 or 2 or 5 or more. I think it can go either way. Matthias asking, how big are your leagues? Because people will take 2 QBs before round 12 sometimes. It's a dangerous game. I once saw someone take their backup quarterback in round 6. So you're definitely correct in that. But that's why I usually I like to take my starting quarterback ideally round 9, round 10, round 11 before the backup quarterbacks go. But it really depends. So if there are 8 quarterbacks, if I'm in round 9 and I'm looking at my board and there are 8 or 9 quarterbacks, I'm okay with any of these guys. I think they're all about the same. Then I'll just wait forever. Now, if there are only 2 guys available, I'm okay, I really like these 2. And then there's a big gap between the next group. Then I'll probably take one of those 2 guys in round 9. So just play it by ear, and just depends on what the year is like, what the depth of the quarterback is like. It really depends. Sometimes you can really get away with it and just not draft the quarterback until the very end. But sometimes you may have to do it a little bit earlier than you'd normally want to.
Yeah, you've got to know your league really well. There's always going to be leagues, and you know who the people are that are going to take 2 tight ends and 2 quarterbacks early, and then they're going to take a kicker and a DST before they've even filled their bench. There are going to be guys like that in every league, and you're also going to have situations where there are 5 quarterbacks there and there's no point in taking one. You can just keep waiting until there's only 1 or 2 left that you like. I would do exactly the same thing if you're waiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Matthias says, also, if I had $1 for every time a running back you can get off the waiver wire when people have 30 handcuffed running backs. Sometimes you can get good running backs to the waiver wire, but it's the toughest position to fill. You can play QB matchups. Tight ends they're super easy to fill. Receiver not as easy, but easier in the running backs. And then John says, if you took CMC, would you want to eventually draft Brock Purdy? Normally, like you pair your quarterback with receiver, that works. Especially in DFS, you want to do that to maximize your upside. But you can do that in regular fantasy too. QB plus receiver, QB plus tight end makes a lot of sense. QB plus running back is a clash. Now McCaffrey's going to catch a lot of passes, but you have to remember that like every time he scores a rushing touchdown, that's a passing touchdown. Brock Purdy's not going to get. Now he could catch a touchdown pass for sure, but McCaffrey will get a lot of rushing touchdowns, and so that's why I wouldn't go with Brock Purdy there. Just try to avoid the QB plus running back clash there.
Yeah, I agree. If you go QB and wide receiver, you're essentially increasing your variance, but you're also increasing your upside, which is good if you're not really convinced about the rest of your team. If you match a QB with a running back, you're lowering your ceiling, and you're also taking a risk because if that team just struggles that day, neither of those players are going to score touchdowns, and you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. So I definitely wouldn't be going out of my way to do it. If the value happened to be there, then sure, but I certainly wouldn't be going out of my way because I don't want to rely on any team, even the 49ers, scoring points every single week. And I certainly don't want to be taking a risk on how it's going to happen.
Yeah, John says, if I had them both last year and won the league because the Niners always put up points. Yeah, I mean, it could certainly happen for sure. It certainly helped that the championship game they played against the Redskins week 17. So they had a very easy matchup. But normally I would not go that route. But I guess it helped because it's not like you were spending a premium pick on Brock Purdy. Like you got him either late or on the waiver wire. So it's not like you drafted CMC in round 1 and then you took your QB in round 4 and matched them that way. Like it just like you can't do it that way if you got a guy late. But I wouldn't draft those too early. So it could really hurt you. Disgruntled says QB plus tight end makes less sense if you only want to carry one of each. Same buy. Yeah, that's definitely true. I guess it depends on how deep your roster is. So, yeah, and John says waivers have made the mistake of drafting Justin Fields. You're not the only one. So a lot of people made a mistake as well. So, I mean, Fields got hurt, but he tends to get injured. So I guess that could have been predicted. All right, round 3, we kick off with Drake London at 25. We have the 26 Jalen Hurts, 27 Deebo Samuel, 28 Josh Jacobs, 29 Derrick Henry, 30 Brandon Ayuk. Not sure where he's going to play. 31 DJ Moore, 32 Rashad White, 33 Mike Evans, 34 Patrick Mahomes, 35 Travis Kelce, 36 Isaiah Pacheco. We have 3 Kansas City guys at the end there. Kind of funny. Pacheco went in the second round of the ESPN fantasy draft yesterday that we reviewed. I thought that was too early. I think he's definitely fine at the end of round 3. No issues there. I still would not take a quarterback here in the third round. I think it's too early. Again, it depends. Like if you have no flex, then I think it's okay to take a quarterback in round 3. But to me, the guy who stands out here, and Kenny agree with me, and I wonder what you think about this guy. Josh Jacobs at 28. He was in the 4th round yesterday. Now, this is better. I don't understand why Josh Jacobs is going outside the first 2 rounds. He's an absolute stud. He's playing in a good offense, a better offensive line than he had last year. And I think he's just going to have a great season. I would like if he goes end of first round, like maybe a little early, but like I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with that. I would gladly take him early second round. Why? I mean, well, first of all, do you agree? Or second, if you do, like, why do you think Jacobs is going so late?
I'm going to be honest. I like all of these running backs here. I think all of these running backs are really good value. I feel like they're not that far away from the guys we saw around earlier. They've all got pretty secure workloads. They're all in pretty good offenses. Everyone but Henry certainly is going to get some receiving work as well. I would happily take any of those running backs over pretty much any of those wide receivers because I just think they're safer. I feel like it's more of a premium position. If my draft went like this, I'd be over the moon and I'd happily pick up 2 of those guys in this sort of range if I had the ability to.
Mm-hmm. Derrick Henry, I'm not too happy about there. I just think that like last year he was getting 10 carries, 12 carries. Like he was splitting touches with Tajay Spears, and Baltimore lost 3 starting offensive linemen this offseason. So their blocking is going to be worse. And I don't know. I feel like I said this yesterday. Derrick Henry's like a member berry picks. Like, remember Derrick Henry? I remember Derrick Henry. Like, he's just like he's old. Like we're talking about CMC being old. Like Derrick Henry's older. He has more mileage. I don't know. Like this is the one guy in the third round here where I'm like, I definitely would not take him. The other running backs I do like, but I just don't like him here.
In PPR, so and you said this is PPR, yeah?
No, this is standard.
Oh, okay. Well, if this is standard, then I'd happily take Henry there. In PPR, I'd want to take him later on, but I feel like he belongs in the same range as those other guys. I certainly think you've got a little bit more upside with a Pacheco or a White because you're going to get a lot more receiving work and hence a lot more secure touches. But we know Baltimore's going to want to run the ball a lot. They don't really have a lot of good other running backs available to them. So it's going to get Henry getting pretty heavy load. There's always an injury risk, but there's an injury risk with every running back. The other guy I think is still really interesting here as well is Mike Evans. I'm pretty interested in Mike Evans in this range compared to a lot of these other guys. We keep expecting Mike Evans to fall off, and yet he keeps being an elite wide receiver. And you're getting him, a round later than all the other guys. And I would expect similar production to a lot of those wide receiver 2 guys from him. We've seen that Baker Mayfield can make it work. We saw that he used Evans. Evans is just consistently a top 12 finisher in fantasy. And at some point, you just have to think, I'm going to keep going to that until it eventually falls off at some stage.
I wonder about Evans. I don't dislike him here. I think it's fine. Rachaad White too. My concern here with Tampa is that Dave Canales is gone, and so they're going to have a new system. Canales was, he's done a great job. He did a great job in Seattle with Geno Smith, and then in Tampa, and now they're going to have a new guy, Liam Cohen. We just don't know what they're going to get out of him. So that's my worry with the Buccaneers. I would try to avoid Buccaneer players, but again, if you get Evans with a great bargain, then I wouldn't pass on him. But and yeah, I guess you could maybe argue that this 33 is a good deal for him. So like Rachaad White at 32 in non PPR, I don't know if I take him there either. So yeah, I just worry about the Buccaneers this year.
Interesting. See, I still feel positive about those guys in this range, especially because it's non-PPR. Evans gets a lot more of his points through yardage and touchdowns. Most of these other guys are kind of possession receivers. So I feel like that even increases his value in this setting.
Yeah. Everyone else is, I think, is fine. Kelsey is too early. He looked decrepit at times last year. Now he had a great playoff run, but now he's in his mid-30s. Tight ends too. Like I wouldn't take a tight end that early either. And I wonder about DJ Moore because again, rookie quarterback. We just don't know. Like yeah, he could outplay his ADP, but I think there is unnecessary risk there. Like I'd even rather have Evans. I'd rather have Pacheco. I'd rather have Ayuk, who's one pick earlier. Like much rather have Josh Jacobs, Deebo Samuel. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I'll probably take all of these running backs over all of those wide receivers. I'm just a little bit nervous about what's going on with Brandon Ayuk in general. And if you're drafting at this point in time, you have to understand there's still going to be risk. They brought in Ricky Pearsall. He's only going to take touches away from those guys. We don't really understand what's happening in that whole wide receiver room, and that's risky. And DJ Moore, there's so much target competition there all of a sudden that I don't think you can assume that he's going to perform like he did with a rookie quarterback and suddenly Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen in there as well. There's just too much. So Drake London's the guy that I like best out of those wide receivers. There's a whole lot of upside in the new system. Deebo and Ayuk, they're going to be solid, but I don't know that I'd take them there when there's more value available from the other guys.
Yeah, Ayuk could go to New England for all we know, and that would be a disaster for his draft stock playing with Drake May. So yeah, so what'd you say?
Washington, maybe he was talking to Jaden Daniels the other day.
Yeah, that would work. Yeah, he and McLaurin would be a great 1-2 punch. Asking Ben, who do you like more for in fantasy, Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams? I think I know Walt's answer.
I have them really, really, really close. In Dynasty, I've Caleb Williams a little bit higher because I feel like you're going to get the upside of longevity. I feel like Jaden Daniels, because he's a running quarterback, they just tend to break down earlier and they tend to have shorter career spans. We see that with guys like Cam Newton. I think we can see it's going to happen at some point with Lamar Jackson. When he can't run anymore, he's not going to be a reliable fantasy quarterback anymore. Caleb Williams, I think, has enough skills to kind of take him through. So because Williams has enough of a rushing floor, I slightly favor Williams. I think he's going to he's got the better offensive stuff around him in redraft. I'd lean Williams, but I've got them both pretty high, actually.
Yeah, I like them both. I like Daniels a little bit more for this season, but I agree. I think Williams is better for Dynasty. I just think Daniels' running ability makes him, or gives him a higher floor as a rookie. But I think as the seasons go on, I think Williams will pass him eventually. John says true, but Evans has produced consistently with a lot of different OCs. Yes, that's definitely true. But then again, he played with Tom Brady. He played with Jameis Winston, who's very aggressive. Now he's going to be playing with Baker Mayfield without Dave Canales. Like that's my worry. I think there's a chance Tampa could really struggle this year. And I expected that last year, and Canales got the most out of them. But I do think they're in for some major regression because they got very lucky in some games. Plus, Evans is, I believe he's 31 now, if I'm not mistaken. So that's usually the year that that receivers fall off. Yeah, he's going to be 31 in 2 months. That's usually the year that these receivers start declining. So it's another reason to maybe pass on him.
So is Devontae Adams, and he was going like a round and a half earlier in a worse offense. I don't understand why we didn't talk about Adams, but that seems way too early to me. I don't have Evans and Adams that far apart for me because they're kind of in similar situations. They're similar ages. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he deserves to be like nearly twice as low as Adams is.
Yeah, Adams is even going to be 32 at the end of the year. I think. Yeah, we didn't touch on him, but I agree. I think that's way too early for him as well. I would not want to draft a 32-year-old receiver in the second round. Pat says taking DJ Moore this high is asking to lose IMO. Yeah, with the rookie quarterback with unknowns, I agree with that. All right, let's get to round 4. We kick off with Stephon Diggs at 37, then 38 Jalen Waddle, 39 Lamar Jackson, 40 James Cook, 41 DK Metcalf, 42 Cooper Kupp, 43 Devontae Smith, 44 CJ Stroud, 45 Trey McBride, 46 Kenneth Walker, 47 Anthony Richardson, 48 Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara in the draft last night was at the end of the third round, if I remember correctly. Now he's here at the end of the fourth. At the end of the third, I was like, it's a little too early, but I think that's end of fourth is pretty good for him. The one guy who stands out to me as being drafted too early is Cooper Kupp. He got passed last year by Puka Nacua. In fact, after week 6, Kupp only had 2 100-yard games. And this guy's always hurt. He has such an extensive injury history. I just can't trust him to stay healthy. Plus, Stafford has an extensive injury history too. So that's kind of a double whammy there. He's getting up there in age. Another one of these older receivers. Cooper Kupp is he just turned 31 last week. So happy birthday, Cooper Kupp, if you're listening. But yeah, I don't like you this year. So any thoughts otherwise on Cooper Kupp and everyone else?
The one that really jumps out to me, I think DK Metcalf's really interesting. I think going into that system with Ryan Grubb, I feel like they're probably going to throw a fair bit of deep ball. I think that's really going to help Metcalf. I feel like he's the clear number one in his offense. Lockett's now well into his 30s. I don't think Jackson Smith-Njigba looked like the kind of player who was going to take over. I feel like everything they're saying and doing suggests to me that Metcalf has a lot more upside than everyone else here, where all these other guys are the number 2 in their offense. Waddle and Smith, we know they kind of have a capped upside. They're always going to finish behind the other receiver that they're battling with. And that just means you're not going to get as much value for them in this range. Someone like Metcalf, he could legitimately be a top 10 wide receiver, and he has a solid floor because of how they use him in this offense. So he's the one that stands out to me as having a lot of value. I really don't like Stephon Diggs in this situation. I wouldn't say he looked washed last year, but he certainly looked disappointing. And I feel like going into a situation where he's going to get a lot of target competition, we know that he's very capable of just spitting the dummy, throwing all of his toys out of the cot, and all of a sudden there's going to be real problems for him competing with Nico Collins, competing with Tank Dell, and they've still got guys like Noah Brown and Robert Woods. I feel like he's not even going to be out there all the time. So Diggs scares me a lot, and I think Trey McBride, that's terrible value. We know that Kyle is going to get injured quite a bit. They just brought Marvin Harrison Jr. in, who's going to take a lot of the targets that McBride was getting. So I hate McBride there. I hate Diggs there.
I agree with both of those. Diggs is going to be 31 soon. So again, it feels like we keep talking about all these 31 and 32-year-old receivers who are going to decline. Yeah, definitely would not take him that early. Yeah, I think everyone else kind of makes sense. I agree with your take on Metcalf as well. I like him quite a bit. He's probably my favorite player in this fourth round. Kenny's here. Kenny said bigger mistake than drafting Justin Fields last year, drafting CJ Stroud, and then cutting him 3 weeks into the season. Thank you so much, Kenny, for allowing me to pick up CJ Stroud in our league. that was nice. Not that it did anything for me because my team was so injury ravaged by the end of the year. I think every player I drafted got hurt, except for Chris Olave. And his quarterback, Derek Carr, got injured quite a bit last year. He had like 2 concussions. He had the shoulder injury that he had against Tampa in week 4. But no, like I swear, every single player I drafted got injured. And I almost
that's just bad drafting. That's just bad drafting. Don't blame the players.
That's true. That's true. Even TJ Hawkinson, who got in the 7th round, got injured toward the end. So. Yeah.
Do you think that CJ Stroud's a little bit too early there? Because that kind of jumps out to me as well as being. I mean, I even as the quarterback 5, ignoring the draft position, but as the 5th quarterback, do you feel like that you would take him 5th overall among quarterbacks?
I have to look where I have CJ Stroud in my rankings. I like him this year. I think he could take the next step for sure. So I don't. Well, I wouldn't draft any quarterback in this round. I should.
No. Ignoring the round entirely and just thinking how you would order your quarterbacks in isolation. Because to me, that lack of rushing floor really scares me. I think it depends on whether it's a 4 or 6 point passing touchdown league. But I know Fantasy Pros standard is 4-point passing touchdown league. So I think in that sort of league, this feels way too early given the lack of ceiling based on the lack of rushing.
I actually have him as my 4th quarterback. So Lamar Jackson, I've way down just because I think he's going to regress and get injured with the 3 offensive linemen missing. But my top 3 are Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, and then I have Stroud after that. So yeah, I love Houston this year. I actually released my season preview of Houston today. I haven't gone 12-5. I think that they're going to just have an amazing year. And I mean, they added weapons for him like Diggs. Yeah, I agree that Diggs is going too early, but they added Diggs to get Tank Dell back from injury. Now Stroud has more experience. They added they basically got two upgrades on the offensive line because they drafted Blake Fisher at right tackle in the 2nd round, and then they can move Titus Howard to guard, which was a weakness last year. So basically, like 2 upgrades for the price of 1 as well. So I really like the team. I think they could take the next step, and wouldn't shock me if they won the Super Bowl this year.
Interesting. Yeah, see, I've got him below Lamar. I've got him below Joe Burrow. I'd probably have him below Richardson. And I'd have him in that same range as like a Caleb Williams or a Jaden Daniels, who have such a high rushing floor that I feel like you've got the potential, if they play really well, to get a lot more out of them than Stroud. I can't imagine a situation where I'd be going out of my way to draft him.
I agree with that. I have all these quarterbacks so bunched together. My QB 5 and my QB 14 are like 20 points apart for the whole year. So that's like a little bit more than 1 point per week. So that's why I'm more than willing to wait on these guys. I have them all ranked very evenly. So even though I see just Stroud number 4, like if he finishes 10 or 11 and he's close to number 4, despite that ranking, like wouldn't surprise me at all there. So I just think that there's so much parity at quarterback that I'm just willing to wait. Like that's my stance on it.
How far do you have your top quarterback from that 5 to 13 range?
So I've Mahomes, Hurts, and Allen scoring 360 points in regular scoring, and then I have my number 5. I was scoring 334. So 30 points apart. So
interesting.
Yeah, it's super close. So, let's see. John says, please draft all Chiefs this year. Sue says, as a receiver 2 in their offenses, how can Higgins be that far removed from Waddle and Devontae Smith as shown in this ADP? I wonder if that's like because he just signed his franchise tag. So I wonder if that's just not updated because people are thinking, oh, maybe he's going to be traded. So you might see his ADP rise. That's my thinking, but Then again, I could be wrong about that. So yeah, I don't really know. So
I think Higgins has been consistently below Waddle and Smith, not by a lot, but certainly consistently below. But I think the main reason he's being taken lower is because they struggled so much in general when they didn't have Joe Burrow last year. I think some people are forgetting that with Burrow back, this offense is going to be a whole lot better again. They also don't have Joe Mixon anymore. They don't really have any strong tight ends. So I agree. I think Higgins has a heap of value wherever he ends up going compared to these guys, but he does belong still below Waddle and Smith just by a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Fifth round, 49, Joe Mixon, 50, Amari Cooper, 51, Mark Andrews, 52, Keenan Allen, 53, Dalton Kincaid, 54, Zay Flowers, 55, Malik Neighbors. Here we go, Malik Neighbors, fifth round, as opposed to fourth round in that fantasy draft. Dak Prescott's 56, 57 is Aaron Jones, 58, No Cookie Jordan Love, 59, Joe Burrow, 60, George Pickens. Again, like, tight ends, quarterbacks too early. Not going to keep harping on that. If Aaron Jones could stay healthy, he will definitely pay off this ADP. I just wonder if he can stay healthy at this point. He just gets so banged up that he's just such an injury risk. I wonder how Keenan Allen's going to do in the Bears offense. I've loved Keenan Allen for so long, but it's a different offense. You have a rookie quarterback. Is he going to produce fifth round value? Maybe. I just don't know. So I think it's a big question mark. But yeah, like as I said before, Neighbors, I would gladly take him fifth round over Marvin Harrison Jr. in the second, even though I like Harrison better, but still they're pretty close to me. But yeah, George Pickens, we talked about him a lot yesterday. We had a lot of disagreements in the chat. I like Pickens. I think he has great potential. I do wonder about Russell Wilson, though. He could really hurt Pickens, but I love Pickens' potential. So, what are your thoughts on round 5?
I think the guys that I like there, and I don't like many of them, but the guys that I like, Amari Cooper, still a potential top 12 wide receiver. I know they've brought guys in, but he's still the clear number one. It's going to depend how the quarterback play goes and how aggressive it is, but I do like Cooper's value because I think ultimately he should fall in that same range as guys like Devontae Adams and Mike Evans. He was similar last year. He's a similar age bracket. He's the number one option in an offense that doesn't have a great quarterback. So I feel like there's at least upside there with him. I also like Malik Neighbors, as you said. I don't think he should be that far away from Marvin Harrison Jr. I'd definitely take him if he was available here. I like Aaron Jones as well, as you said. Lots of upside. We know that the Vikings do tend to run the ball quite a lot, and I think they brought in Jones for a reason. I think he's going to be the number one, even though Ty Chandler will be involved too. And I think that George Pickens has some value, but I wouldn't take him above those three guys I mentioned previously. Everyone else there, except maybe Joe Mixon. I think Joe Mixon's fair in this range, but everyone else seems way too early. I know we're talking about a lot of tight ends and quarterbacks, but Dalton Kincaid there, that seems crazy to me. He lost a lot of touches to Dawson Knox, even when Knox came back from injury in the last 3 weeks. I don't think you're getting enough upside out of him being drafted in this range.
Yeah, I think tight ends are just going too early. In the draft yesterday, someone took Cole Kmet in the 16th round. So yeah, you just get him late. You don't have to reach on these tight ends. Just load up on running backs and receivers. So let's get to round 6. We kick things off with 61 Najee Harris. That's a little too high there. 62 T Higgins, we were talking about him earlier. 63 Ramondre Stevenson, who just signed a big contract today. It's very shocking numbers. 64 Kyle Pitts, 65 Tank Dell, 66 DeAndre Swift, 67 Christian Kirk, 68 Kyler Murray, 69 Terry McLaurin, 70 Evan Ingram, 71 George Kittle, and 72 David Montgomery. I think this is a very interesting round here where there are some guys I love and there's some guys I hate. I love T. Higgins at 62. That's a steal. Tank Dell, you brought him up earlier. I love Tank Dell in the 6th round, especially compared to like Nico Collins going round 2. Stephon Diggs is going round 4 or like a top round 4. there's just so much more value with Tank Dell here. Christian Kirk is going to be the number one receiver again with Calvin Ridley gone, unless Brian Thomas Jr. Is awesome as a rookie. But I love Christian Kirk around 6. Terry McLaurin is someone I think is going to bounce back from a horrible year. Last year he had Sam Howell, who either held the ball too long and took too many sacks, or try to compensate that and just release the ball super quickly and didn't get the ball to McLaurin. And then when Jacoby Brissett came in those 2 games late in the year, we suddenly saw McLaurin produce. And I think that people kind of forget what he could do. So I think with a legitimate franchise quarterback, I think McLaurin's going to have a renaissance here. The guys I hate, though, Najee Harris, like what is he doing around 6? Like, who'd he pay to go here? I don't get that at all. The tight ends, not going to harp on them again. DeAndre Swift, I feel like is just going to get injured. He played well last year, but that was behind a top 5 offensive line. Bears have a decent line. It's not as good as the Eagles, though. So I think people are drafting Swift too early. Kyler Murray is just going to get hurt again. Don't draft him here. Tight ends at the end here. Not a fan. And then Montgomery is going to lose touches to Jahmyr Gibbs. He could, like, if Gibbs gets hurt, like, yeah, Montgomery's going to be a steal here. But with Gibbs having a larger workload, I just would not. I wouldn't draft Montgomery in the 6th round. So, I think this is a round where there's guys I love and guys I hate. So, what are your thoughts here?
I'm actually 100% with you on pretty much everyone you said. Totally agree. Higgins, great value. Dell, fantastic value. Kirk's the number 1 there. There's great value there as well if he can stay healthy. Terry McLaurin has upside, though I still have him behind those other wide receivers. The running backs here, this is pretty ugly, realistically. I think we've kind of hit that running back dead zone where I'm not particularly interested in many of them. I think Ramondre Stevenson's the one interesting one. That offense is going to struggle, but they're going to have to give him the ball because who else are they giving the ball to? I think Stevenson is going to be heavily involved because they're just probably going to try to grind games out. For that reason, I think there's a little bit of value, but there's a lack of upside. So I think if you're taking these running backs, you better hope the wide receiver room is very strong. I certainly wouldn't be taking these as like upside bench slots because they're not going to offer you much upside compared to the running backs you're getting earlier.
Yeah, I think you could take a good lesson here. Now, things are going to change as the summer progresses. But you can look at this range and be like, these, and I like what Ben says, 100% true. Like, these running backs suck for the most part. Stevenson's okay around 6, but still, it's not ideal. But you look at these receivers like Tank Dell, T. Higgins, Christian Kirk, Terry McLaurin. Like, there's such good values here. So maybe you're thinking, okay, I'm going to go running back early because when we get to round 6, I can land one of these stud receivers. And who knows, maybe McLaurin falls to round 7. You can get 2 of these stud receivers around 6 through 7. So, that's something to think about. And we're going to do fantasy mock drafts throughout August. So we'll be able to see how this evolves. But yeah, it's a very ugly range for running backs for sure. Let's get to round 7. We kick things off with another ugly running back with Zamir White at 73, 74 Chris Godwin, 75 Jaden Reed, 76 Calvin Ridley, 77 James Conner, 78 Javonte Williams, 79 Rashee Rice. Assume he's going to be suspended. 80 Marquise Brown. 81 DeAndre Hopkins, 82 Zach Moss, 83 Brock Purdy, 84 Austin Eckler. So yeah, Zamir White, he could. I don't know what to think of him. Like I feel like his variant. He's like a super high range of outcomes. Like he could be good this year, but he could also lose his job. You know, I feel like he's not cemented in, and you know, you're taking him in the 7th round, so I get it. Javonte Williams. Don't draft Javonte Williams. Cecil Lammey, who's he's one of the top 2 team reporters when it comes to covering an individual team. And as far as I know, he's never gotten anything wrong when talking about the Broncos. He's just impeccable track record. He tweeted out a week ago, I think, that Javonte Williams is in danger of not making the final roster, and that Jaleel McLaughlin has been starting running back there. So don't take Javonte Williams. Just whatever you do. If you take one thing away from this video, don't take Javonte Williams here. Outside of that. I think like everything else kind of makes sense. I'm not a fan of Calvin Ridley. I feel like he could just quit on this team. I like Jaden Reed in PPR, not so much in standard. Chris Godwin's a guy I think might regress with Canales gone. We talked about Evans. I think Evans is coordinator proof, whereas I think Godwin could regress without Canales. So I worry about him. Rashee Rice, if you draft him here and he's not suspended, suddenly that's going to be amazing. So I have no issues taking him around 7. Zach Moss he may not be the starting running back. He's kind of like Zamir White. Like, he could be the starter. He may not be the starter. Like, we don't know. Austin Eckler, if this is PPR, fine. This is not PPR, so I wouldn't take him here. So this is an ugly round. Like, when we're drafting, I'd hope that like one of the round 6 receivers seeps into this range, because outside of Rashee Rice, and I guess maybe Marquise Brown, I don't know what to expect of him. Not in love with anything here. Maybe James Conner, he finished the season well last year, and it's a good offensive line, but I feel like with his track record, he's almost certainly going to get hurt. So what are your thoughts on round 7 here?
I hate it. To summarize, absolutely hate it. This is horrible. Realistically, by this time of the draft, you should be starting to think upside, because none of these guys are going to be reliable options for you unless you're in a league where you're starting 3 wide receivers, 2 flex spots, 2 running backs, a tight end or 2, something crazy like that, or a super flex league. By round 7, realistically, you should be shooting for upside, going for those guys who can win your league. How many of these guys are going to win you your league? I think the options there are Jaden Reed, because realistically, he was actually only playing about 60% snaps last season. If he can become an every down player, all of a sudden he has some upside there. So if they're getting him out on the field more regularly, I feel like he at least has the potential to be a mid-range wide receiver too, and that would make this a really big bargain here. Most of these other guys are significant injury risk. They're not going to get good usage. You struck on Zamir White. I feel like he at least has some upside. We know the Raiders' running game has been solid for a long time, or certainly at least run heavy. And I feel like it could be that way again this year. And I feel like White's the main guy. I do think they're going to bring someone in on the receiving snaps. It might be Dylan Lowry, for example. It might be Amir Abdullah again. I don't know who it will be, but they will definitely bring someone in on 3rd and long. But I think that White's going to get enough touches to mean he could pay off if you passed on running back early, and now you're in a little bit of a problem. Zach Moss is the other guy I'm interested in. I don't really know that there's anyone there who's going to take that number 1 spot off him entirely. Worst case scenario, he's in a committee with Chase Brown, but I feel like it is probably Zach Moss. He looked pretty good last year, and I know it's easy to look good in that Colts line, but I still kind of like Zach Moss over everyone else here.
Yeah, I was thinking Chase Brown, actually. I think he may get the job. I liked what I saw out of him last year. I think it could easily be a 50-50 split between those two guys. Like, I don't think there's going to be like a necessarily number 1 running back there. It could be like 1A, 1B. And so that worries me in Cincinnati, Plus, the Bengals don't have the best offensive line either. So
that's true.
Yeah.
But there's at least upside with a guy who might be an every down running back. Probably not, but he might be. And if that happens, you're winning in this range.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I have to say that outside of the crappy players in this round, I got like a weird sick feeling in my stomach just looking in this round. I couldn't figure out why. And then when you said Zamir White, it finally clicked to me. Last year in week 18, I played a DraftKings lineup. It was single entries, $100 entry. And I had James Conner as one of my running backs, and I saw I was listening to the pregame DFS shows, and everyone, like the analysts were like, everyone's playing James Conner. Like, ownership's gonna be super high. So I was like, fine, I'll pivot. I pivoted to Zamir White. So I finished highly in that tournament. It was not a great payout, but it was decent. Had I stuck with James Conner, though, I would have won $50,000. I didn't win anything close to that, unfortunately. So yeah, the pivot from James Conner to Zamir White cost me a pretty penny, I should say. So
we all could have had a pay rise.
So yeah, just seeing these two guys close together, like I couldn't figure it out. Like I got this like bad feeling in my stomach. I'm like, something's wrong here. I really don't like this. And I was like, maybe it's just the players being terrible. Yeah. But no. What are your thoughts on Rashee Rice before we move on? Would you take him in round 7? Even knowing that he's probably going to be suspended 6 games. Like, what are your thoughts here?
I'm really scared about his usage. Last year, they had no one else. It was Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice and a whole heap of dudes. This year, they now at least have some quality around. They've got Xavier Worthy, who I think will be solid. They've got Hollywood Brown, who I think will be solid. So all of a sudden, there's a lot of target competition. It's not like Rice stood out as being amazing. He was just kind of the second best passing option. So that kind of caps his upside for me. The suspension is a little bit of a concern as well. I think you need the Chiefs to remain a really high-scoring team, and you need him to still get a solid passing share. And I feel like the chances of both of those things happening is low enough that I don't think the value's there.
So would you take Marquise Brown then instead?
No,
they don't like any of them.
Don't get me wrong. I'm a Chiefs fan. If I want one of their pass catchers, I'm taking Travis Kelce. It is still Travis Kelce. I know that he looked worse last year, but it's still Travis Kelce. He's still their best pass catcher. He's their red zone guy. He's the guy they go to when he's under pressure. It's going to keep happening that way. There's going to be a lot of him, and there's going to be so many other guys getting involved that I just don't want any of their wide receivers realistically.
No, fair enough. Let's see. John says, if only Rashee Rice ran as fast as he drives. That's true. And then that's Rashee Lamborghini Rice, John. Parrot says, I think Zach Moss gets the goal line carries, honestly. Yeah, I think that's certainly going to be his role for sure. Although last year, I don't know, like there was that one game, I think it was against Tennessee. He got like 5 goal line carries and he didn't like score at all. So maybe he's not that great in that regard. But I remember that game very clearly because I had some sort of bet. I bet against Zach Moss. I think it was just his rushing yards, and I was just rooting for him not to do anything. And I actually won that bet. But I remember that game clearly. Like he just looked really bad. But he had
100% touches as well. Sorry, 100% snaps as well. They're using him on every down too. So I think he has that upside. But you're right. He had weird games where he looked terrible, and he had games where he looked amazing last year. So it's just kind of hard to know exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so we get to round 8 here. We start off with Deontay Johnson at 85, then Tony Pollard 86, 87 Jonathan Brooks, 88 Jalen Warren, 89 Jordan Addison, 90 Raheem Mostert, 91 Jared Goff, 92 David Njoku, 93 Justin Herbert, 94 Christian Watson, number 95 Tua Tagovailoa, and number 6 Jake Ferguson. As you were talking about Jake Ferguson, getting him as the tight end 10, 11, 12. Yeah, that's kind of the range here. So I would not draft Jonathan Brooks. Now, this is much better than the 5th round pick we saw with Jonathan Brooks in yesterday's ESPN mock draft. 8th round is more acceptable, but he's not going to be ready for training camp. So I kind of have to wonder how much he's going to play in the first half of the year. He could be decent in the second half of the year, but I just don't know. I feel like that's not necessary to take him here. We have Pollard over Tajay Spears here. Spears was taken before Pollard in yesterday's mock draft, but that was PPR. This is standard. So, I get the switch. Jalen Warren was also taken before Najee Harris in yesterday's mock draft. So I thought that was interesting. I think Warren is better than Harris, but I feel like they're more dedicated to Harris. So I don't know. I'd rather not have anyone in that offense except for Pickens, but I mean, this is another reason you can wait on a quarterback. You have Herbert here in the 8th round, Tua in the 8th round, perfectly fine taking them. I love Christian Watson this year. I said this yesterday. I love that he was proactive on figuring out why he had chronic hamstring issues last year, and they found that he has more bulk in one of his hamstring than the other. So I don't know what he's doing about that, but at least like he figured out the problem, and maybe he's working on a solution right now. So I like that he's kind of like dedicated to kind of figuring out like what went wrong. So I expect him to play more this upcoming season, and we saw him like dominate in some of the games he was in. So if it wasn't for the injuries last year, he could have had a monster season. So he has great upside. So I like him here in round 8. Probably my favorite pick of all the round 8 guys. There's not a lot I love here. So what are your thoughts here in round 8?
I think it's interesting that a top 3 running back from last year is available in the 8th round. I think that's kind of wacky. I know that we talk about Miami kind of sharing it around a little bit, but realistically, Raheem Mostert was a league winner last year, and you're getting him so cheap that upside's still there. I'm not saying he's going to be top 3 next year. He near definitely won't be. He might not even be top 24. but you're getting him as the 30-something running back off the board. That's such good value when you're taking Achane, a guy who's still behind him in the second round, was it? I think it was ninth running back overall. And now you've got a guy who's at least equivalent to him in the 30-something round. That's insane. I don't understand why that's happening. I know that Mostert's older, but he didn't show any signs of slowing down last year. He still looked amazing last year, and he was still their starting running back. So I do think that Mostert's got a lot of value here. Don't really like anyone else. I think with guys like Pollard and also the Steelers guys as well, you're talking about a situation where there's only really value if the other guy gets injured. So if Spears gets injured, Pollard has value. If Pollard gets injured, Spears has value. Same thing with Warren and Najee Harris. We didn't see it happen last year with Najee Harris and Warren. But if one of them goes down, and it's going to happen the same thing with the Titans, all of a sudden the other one has value. So how much are you willing to pay for a guy who needs an injury before he's really going to be productive? And even in that case, he's probably only a running back too. So I think you'd only do that if you went very zero RB early on and you're kind of desperate just to get someone who can at least put up 6 points a week or something like that and give you at least something in that slot until you hit on those handcuffs and stuff later on. So if you're in that situation, I can imagine going on Pollard or Warren, but I would avoid it in almost every situation. Mostert, I like the best, and I really like the tight ends in this range. I think Njoku has plenty of upside here. And I think Ferguson's fine as a guy you can kind of rely on as well. And I think you're right about Christian Watson as well. I think there's upside, and there's a lot more upside than most of the other guys in this round.
We saw Njoku go in the 6th round of ESPN's draft yesterday, so I didn't like that. But here in the 8th round, I like that. I agree with the running backs. You kind of have to, take one of these guys. If you're going to take one of these guys, you kind of have to like hold your breath and like hope that the other guy gets hurt, but you don't want to take both because you're hurting your upside. So it's a situation. These are situations that didn't occur in fantasy 20 years ago because there used to be like a bell cow on every single team, and now it seems like there are only like 8 to 10 teams that employ one running back or deploy one running back, and like it's like a committee on every other team. It's gotten pretty rough to handicap this for fans. We had a super chat here from John. Thank you so much, John. 333. Chiefs aren't repeating, but John is repeating with his super chats three days in a row with the 333. Thank you so much, John. So Chiefs aren't repeating. So John, who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl then? I'm kind of curious. John's our resident Bills fan, so maybe it'll be maybe he'll say the Bills, but I'm kind of curious because the AFC is low. Slu says, I really like Christian hamstring Watson at this ADP. I think you have the Chiefs cut there.
Oh, look, I heard John. He wanted me to wear the cap. I understand totally. I get it. I understood what you said. Thank you for the super chat. I'll wear it until the next one comes in.
Nice. Sue says I really like Christian hamstring Watson to CDP. We used to call Albert the hamstring Hainsworth the hamstring. That's like the original hamstring guy. Because like he signed that $100 million contract, then he's like, oh, I'm out with a hamstring injury. Like it was like every other week he'd be out with a hamstring injury. Hamstring Watson actually does apply, but I like that he's being proactive about it. I guess. Sue says Deontay Johnson could profit from the Canales miracle. That's true. He's just like, it's just so unappealing to draft him because of how bad Bryce Young was last year. But I do think Bryce Young is going to play better this year. And, Deontay Johnson will benefit from that. We saw Adam Thielen have some big games last year. And so those big games could go to Deontay Johnson this year.
Yeah, I actually kind of like Deontay Johnson. I didn't mention him there because the upside's a bit limited. But then again, Adam Thielen was a top 10 wide receiver at times last year, which is insane. But realistically, they're going to have to use somebody. The reason I don't have Johnson higher is I kind of really like Xavier Legette. I feel like there's a whole lot of upside with him. He was amazing at times last year. He plays so much bigger than he is. If he can get separation effectively, and he does have plenty of speed, he's going to look amazing in the NFL. I just don't know whether he can do it, but the risk of that is the reason that I don't have Johnson higher. Plus, Thielen's still there. So there's just enough cooks in the kitchen to scare me a little bit.
Too many cooks. I don't know if you ever seen that video, Too Many Cooks?
No.
Oh my God. All right. Well, after you're done this, you have to watch the Too Many Cooks. So good. You'll be like, what am I watching? This is the weirdest video you'll ever see in your life. It's like 11 minutes long. It went viral like 10 years ago, but yeah, you're in for a treat, I promise. John says Niners. Okay, yeah. Trent Williams and everyone stays healthy for sure. Yeah, I can see it. John says Australians are terrible at talking trash.
Oh no, I'm just terrible at talking trash. Australians are actually known for being very good trash talkers. Our cricket team has a reputation of being better trash talkers than cricketers, and they're the world champions at cricket. So that gives you an idea of where we're at.
Nice. All right. Round 9. We start with Devin Singletary, number 97. 98, Caleb Williams. Number 99, Tajay Spears. 100, Nick Chubb. 101, Jaden Daniels. So Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels going very close to each other, as I'm not a surprise there. 102 is Brian Robinson Jr. 103, Trevor Lawrence. 104, Xavier Worthy. 105, Brock Bowers. 106, Rome Odunze. 107, Jackson Smith and Jigba. 108, Ladd McConkey. I don't know what to expect out of Nick Chubb. He had that devastating knee injury, but we've seen him. He's been a great running back. I don't like taking running backs coming off the knee injury, but at number 100 overall, it's kind of like, I don't know. Maybe you take the risk, maybe you don't. I don't know. I do like the rookie quarterbacks here. If you wait on the quarterbacks, another reason you can wait. Just wait till round 9. You can get Jaden Daniels. I think that's perfectly fine. You mentioned Xavier Worthy earlier. I don't know. Like, I feel like he's so hit or miss. I feel like he'd have a great year, or he just do nothing. So I guess that's the sort of player you want to start taking in the second half of your fantasy draft. Jackson Smith and Jigba, he should take the next step. We'll see. He had some nice showings at the end of the year. Like, he had that game-winning touchdown catch against the Eagles. He did the same thing against the Browns earlier in the year. So I suspect he's going to be the receiver too there this year. But Lockett is still there. Ladd McConkey is really interesting because he's shown a good rapport with Justin Herbert. I'd rather have him in PPR, but at the end of round 9, I'm perfectly fine with it. I know Kenny likes Brian Robinson Jr. a lot. I like him a little bit. Just don't know how they're going to handle Robinson versus Eckler. But, the Redskins, they upgraded their offensive line this offseason. So he could have more success running the ball. And then you have Tajay Spears. So we touched on Pollard versus Spears earlier. So what are your thoughts around 9 here?
I think anyone who has Eckler higher than Robinson didn't watch the Chargers last year, because Eckler was terrible. I drafted him in too many leagues, and so I had to watch a lot of Chargers games, and it was just all around depressing. I expect that Robinson's going to be the main guy, getting 60, 70% of the touches there. I think he's going to have a lot of value. I actually like a lot of this round. I think Robinson's great value this late. I think Nick Chubb's interesting, but we're going to have to hear more about his health situation. I love the quarterbacks. I love getting Williams or Daniels here. Even Lawrence is fine value there, given he's the 17th guy off the board. Love Brock Bowers there. I feel like Brock Bowers has the potential to be really good straight out the gate. He could realistically be the second pass-catching option in that offense. We know that tight ends drafted that early in the draft have a really high success rate. We talked about that last time I was on, and that often starts in their first year. Think about guys like Kyle Pitts. First year in a terrible offense, goes in as essentially one of the top pass-catching options in the team and becomes a top 5 tight end. Same thing could easily happen with Bowers, and I totally agree with McConkey as well. I think McConkey could be the number 1 option there. In fact, I feel like target-wise, he probably is the top option.
Yeah. I like Bowers as well. Again, like another reason you can wait on tight end. So, John asking, did Adrian Peterson fall to slow after tore his ACL? I can answer that right now. Let's take a trip down memory lane and look at ADP from 2012. This will be fun. So this is great. Aaron Foster, number 1. Aaron Rodgers, Ray Rice, Tom Brady, LaShawn McCoy, Calvin Johnson, Darren McFadden, Drew Brees, Chris Johnson, Matt Forte. Then you have Maurice Jones-Drew, Marshawn Lynch, Cam Newton, Jamal Charles, Adrian Peterson. So we have him here in the second round. Rob Gronkowski, Ryan Matthews, Steven Jackson, Larry Fitzgerald, Brandon Marshall. It's a nice trip down memory lane here. It's easy to forget some of these names and how high they were drafted a long time ago.
Don't you love those first round quarterbacks as well? Remember that when that was cool?
Yeah, people used to do it all the time.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's a different world. I remember one of my leagues, like in the first round, it was 9 running backs: Randy Moss and Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. And one of my, I forget what year it was, maybe 08 or 9. It was people used to take quarterbacks in the first round all the time. Used to be Manning, Brady, and then Breeze, or like Peyton Manning here around 5. That's kind of strange, but maybe that's I think that was the year after he got hurt, I think. That makes sense.
Next year, I remember 2013. I think it was first round.
Yes. It's funny. You have Reggie Bush here, Miles Austin, Reggie Wayne, Donald Brown, Vincent Jackson. Man, this is your Michael Finley. Like, this is fun to like. Pierre Garcon. This is a lot of fun to look at these old names. So, like, I just you forget. It's easy to forget these guys. Malcolm Floyd, Fred Davis. Jeremy Maclin. It's crazy. You can just like just remember all these guys you used to have on your team, and like you just forget about them. And this is 12 years ago. So yeah, it's insane. So anyway, that was pretty fun. So props for bringing that up. I didn't even know who Ray Hilo was. Ray Hilo. That's another name. It's a Madden made up name. All right. So round 10, we kick things off with TJ Hawkinson, who's coming off the torn ACL. So don't draft him there. 110, Cortland Sutton. 111, Kirk Cousins. 112, Trey Benson. 113, Dallas Goedert. 114, Jamison Williams. 115, Keon Coleman. 116, Blake Corum. 117, Matthew Stafford. 118, Chase Brown. 119, Aaron Rodgers. 120, Brian Thomas Jr. A Goddard in round 10 is insane. I'm more than happy to take my tight end here. Don't understand why Dallas Goedert's going so late. I like Trey Benson's upside. I like these running backs, like these rookie running backs here. Blake Corum has a chance. Kyrie Williams has not shown any signs of positive durability. He could be the starter at some point. Chase Brown, we talked about him. He could be the starter. Brian Thomas Jr., like, he's raw, but who knows? Like, I thought DK Metcalf was raw. And I love Metcalf's upside. I was like, yeah, year 2, year 3 is great. And then like year 1, he was awesome. So like who knows? Maybe Brian Thomas Jr. just has a great rookie season right away, and he just more than pays off. Like, they taking someone like Brian Thomas Jr. here in the 10th round, like that could win your league. Like if he's as good as like people think he could be, like right away, you're going to win your league because you get like a stud receiver in the 10th round. So I like a lot of these upside guys here. Picks I hate though, Hawkinson, talked about him, and then Cortland Sutton. He's only being drafted early because he scored 10 touchdowns last year. There's so much variance with touchdowns. Just don't rely on that. Like I think there's a good chance he catches like 3 touchdowns this year. So I would not take him. So what are your thoughts in round 10?
Love this range. This is fantastic quality, like rookies here that you're getting so cheap because people haven't seen that happen. Keon Coleman goes into a situation where he may be the wide receiver 1 with one of the best quarterbacks in football. You've got a situation where you've got running backs who only need an injury with an injury-prone guy ahead of them to be worked like every down backs. Jamison Williams is interesting, but I certainly wouldn't take him over those other guys. I love Coleman. I love Brian Thomas Jr., as you said. Love Trey Benson as one of those bench backs. I'm going to want a whole lot of guys like Benson and Corum and guys like that in these late rounds. I'm going to stash 5 of them on my bench, and 2 of them are going to win me my league.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is where you can win your league. Like, you have to draft the right guy. I mean, yeah, you can draft Coleman, he's not good. You can draft Thomas, he's not good. But like, I feel like one or 2 of these guys they're going to win someone in their league for sure. Let's get to round 11. We have Ezekiel Elliott at 121, 122 Dalton Schultz, 123 Jerome Ford, 124 Gus Edwards, 125 Jacoby Myers, 126 Zach Charbonnet, 127 Pat Fryermuth, 128 Romeo Doubs, 129 Cole Kmet, 130 Khalil Shakir, 131 Curtis Samuel, 132 Baker Mayfield. I think this is the opposite of round 10, where like you don't have too many upside guys. I guess Charbonnet, you could argue maybe Walker gets hurt and he takes over. Although like he had his couple of chances last year and he didn't really show much. Cole Kmet, when I mentioned he went round 16 in ESPN's draft, so this is like more his range. But yeah, I'm fine taking Kmet as my starting tight end. Shakir could have some upside, like you mentioned Coleman. It could be Shakir. He has less upside, I think, than Coleman, but he has more experience, so there's that. Samuel, I would like more in PPR and standard. Not a huge fan. Jacoby Myers produced well last year, just different quarterback, not sure. But yeah, I mean, Ezekiel Elliott, like why is he going over Rico Dowdle? I just don't know. But yeah, this round I like a lot less. Although there are a couple of like solid tight end picks like Fryermuth and Kmet. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think this is the kind of range where you're going if you went 0 RB. So we talked about guys like Warren and Najee Harris and Pollard and Tajay Spears. This is the sort of range where I'd want to be getting guys if I'm desperate and I've chosen to go really wide receiver heavy and I've already got my tight end and quarterback, which is a viable strategy. And I feel like the Dallas backfield and the Chargers backfield are the kind of guys that I'd head towards. The problem is you don't really know who you're going to be targeting in that backfield. I personally prefer Rico Dowdle. I think Gus Edwards is probably the starting running back initially, unless J.K. Dobbins actually looks healthy. I think that probably week 1, Edwards gets plenty of carries. So if you need someone who's going to be good in the first couple of weeks while you wait for your upside guys, they're probably pretty safe in going for Dallas and the Chargers. I think Jerome Ford's also really interesting from that perspective. It's entirely possible that Nick Chubb just doesn't play this year. We don't know what's going to happen there. And if that occurs, Jerome Ford all of a sudden becomes extremely valuable. So he's one of the top handcuff running backs for me, because not only is there the chance that Chubb gets injured after he comes back, there's the chance he never comes back. And that's significantly more upside than a guy like a Charbonnet, who realistically needs Kenneth Walker to get injured before he's actually going to pay off. I do also like Curtis Samuel. I think he could potentially be the number 1 wide receiver there, though I think it's far more likely that he's a useful PPR option, as you said.
Yeah, I think you're right about Ford. There's a good chance that Chubb just doesn't play. So I think you're right on the money with that. And yeah. I mean, you could pick up some okay running backs here if you didn't draft one earlier, as you mentioned. Round 12, we start with Deshaun Watson at 133, 134 Tyler Lockett, 135 Mike Williams, 136 Jerry Jeudy, 137 Kendra Miller, 138 Ty Chandler, 139 Gabe Davis, 140 Jalen Wright, 141 Geno Smith, 142 Will Levis, 143 Antonio Gibson, 144 Luke Musgrave. I like Kendra Miller a lot. Kamara misses time every year, right? I don't know if it's like 2, 3, 4 games. Like Miller will start at some point. So I like him there. The Dolphins gave up a 3rd rounder from next year for Jalen Wright. So I feel like he's going to be worked in somehow. The problem is that there's so many running backs there, but still. Lockett, I think it's just what's the upside here? I don't get like why people would draft him. Just go upside. Mike Williams were healthy, yes, but he always gets hurt. So enjoy your 2 quarters of Mike Williams before he goes down. And he may, like, who knows when he's going to play anyway, coming with the torn ACL. I wouldn't draft him either. Surprised Will Levis is even being drafted. I thought he would just be undrafted in most leagues. I don't know why he's going around 12. That's a little surprising. Same with Geno Smith. There's no Dave Canales, there's no Greg Olson anymore. It's a new coaching staff. I think he could struggle. So I kind of question the quarterbacks being taken here. But yeah, my favorite picks here are the backup running backs, Kendra Miller especially. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree. With the Saints, we don't really know what's going to happen there. Alvin Kamara is kind of holding out. I don't know if he's still holding out, but he definitely was for a while. it's not impossible that he either succeeds in holding out and gets moved. It's also possible to get a contract, but I feel like they're just going to make him play on that contract for one more year. I think it's entirely possible that that turns into a really ugly situation. And given how late you're getting Kendra Miller, there's upside there. The only problem is that Jamal Williams is still there. And I think possibly even if Alvin Kamara goes down, you still see enough Jamal Williams to be inconvenient. So if I had to choose an upside running back here, I probably select Ty Chandler. I think he's probably still going to get 30 to 40% of the touches, even while Aaron Jones is healthy. And we talked about how much Aaron Jones has struggled to stay healthy. Ty Chandler looked really good last year at times. And they did talk about, there's a lot of talk coming out of the Minnesota camp that they do still like Ty Chandler and they expect him to get a reasonable amount of touches. So Chandler has upside there. I think Wright has enough upside. I certainly like the running backs over everybody else here.
Yeah, Chandler's another one of these backup running backs you can draft. We're talking about the 0 running backs. This is another range where you can get good ones. John says Curtis Samuel has never played with an even average quarterback. Hey, what is this Jacoby Brissett slander? He played like 3 quarters with Brissett last year. So no, yeah, you're right. Like he's never had a great quarterback like this or anything close to it. So and I like that he is familiar with the system. You know, like sometimes you see receivers come to new teams and they struggle right away because they can't really gel in the new system. But he's had experience with Joe Brady before. So yeah, I think you might be on to something with Curtis Samuel. You and John. I like them I like him for sure. But like I said, I prefer him in PPR. But you could definitely make the case to take him in standard. Round 13, we start with Rashid Shaheed, Joshua Palmer, 146, 147, J.K. Dobbins, 148, Jahan Dotson, 149, Josh Downs, 150, Chuba Hubbard, 151, Brandon Cooks, 152, Marshawn Lloyd, 153, Michael Wilson, 154, Rico Dowdle, 155, Derek Carr, 156, Taysom Hill. I don't understand this Rico Dowdle ADP. It feels like he should go higher. I mean, he's the starting running back in Dallas. Now, I think that may correct itself as people figure that out. Like, it's not going to be Elliott. Now, I don't know how high Dowdle should go, but he should definitely go higher than round 13. Marshawn Lloyd, I like him better than A.J. Dillon. So if you're going to I don't like drafting my own handcuffs. I like drafting other people's handcuffs. So like Lloyd is someone I'd consider here. I think Dotson could bounce back. Now we'll see. Maybe the Redskins trade for Ayuk, but if they don't, I think Dotson could rebound with a better quarterback. Dobbins, I think has huge potential. Now I think you might be right. Like maybe Gus Edwards starts week 1. Yeah, he's getting paid more, but Dobbins has more talent than Gus Edwards. Like there's no doubt about it. That like Dobbins' issue is staying healthy, but he's 2 years removed now from a torn ACL, so maybe he'll have better luck. And I'm going to stick with Josh Palmer. I don't know why there's so much hate on Josh Palmer here. He's going super late. Kenny hates him more than anyone on this planet. I don't understand why everyone hates Joshua Palmer. I thought he looked good last year when given the chance. And they really don't have any other proven option. So I'm more than happy to take Palmer. So I like quite a few guys in this round. What do you think?
I'm with you. You hit on the guys I like best. If I had to take one player in this round, it would be Rico Dowdle, because I do think there is the chance that he is the starting running back in Dallas. I'm sure that Ezekiel Elliott's going to be involved, but Dowdle has so much upside, and Zeke is old and he's looking slow. So realistically, Dowdle at least plays solid. He's going to get a lot of touches, and we know in that backfield that can be really valuable. I think Lloyd has a little bit of upside. Chuba Hubbard's interesting, depending on what we hear about Jonathan Brooks. If you're going 0 RB, that's another guy that you can probably target that will give you a little bit of quality, at least in the first few rounds of the season. And Jahan Dotson, I really like, as you said, plenty of upside there. Could easily have a bounce back. Actually has a quarterback that's going to be willing to put the ball downfield this time. So I think it's possible that given he's a former first-round player, there's upside taking him this low in the draft.
Okay, we have 3 more rounds to go. We start 157, so round 14. Adam Thielen, 157, 158, Quentin Johnson, 159, Kamani Vidal, 160, Tyler Algier, 161, Hunter Henry, 162, Dontavian Wicks, 163, Darnell Mooney, 164, Adonai Mitchell, 165, Roshan Johnson, 166, Jaleel McLaughlin, 167, Ray Davis, 168, Tyler Conklin. I have to say this, like if I didn't absolutely hate the Broncos this year, I would love Jaleel McLaughlin here. I mean, he's the starting running back right now. The problem is they have like a billion running backs, so he could get like 10 carries. The next guy gets 8. The next guy gets 6. Like it's pretty rough. And I hate Denver this year, so I don't want any Broncos on my roster. Adonai Mitchell has huge upside. The Colts have the cap space to trade for Ayuk, so you have to worry about that if you're drafting now. But if they don't draft him, I think Mitchell could be like that second round receiver who plays really well. Darnell Mooney's kind of interesting. Like we saw him a few years ago play really well, and he struggled since. But now he's going to play with Kirk Cousins, best quarterback he's ever had. So I think that I think Mooney could pay off his round 14 ADP. And Quentin Johnson, like he was drafted in the first round. He looked awful last year. Like Darius Davis outplayed him. Like that's how bad he was. But he has upside. He's been looking good at OTAs. Not that that's difficult to do. But like you're not taking much of a risk here with him. If he fails, then you're probably going to just pick up one of these guys anyway. So what are your thoughts on round 14 here?
Yeah, I'm really searching for upside this late in the draft. I tend to take a lot of handcuff running backs. Of the handcuff running backs there, I think I like Tyler Algier best. Realistically, if you get an injury to Bijan Robinson, we've seen that can be a really valuable role. I think Ray Davis is also really interesting. If James Cook goes down, I think Davis could be involved. And even if Cook doesn't go down, I do expect that Davis will still get plenty of touches and therefore be useful if you need him for a bye week or something like that. So I kind of like the Davis situation, but the biggest upside here, without a doubt, it's got to be Adonai Mitchell. He goes into a situation where he was drafted later for unskill-related things. If he plays up to his skill level and his ability level, he's going to be really good. With that much upside, you've got to take him over everybody else.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Ray Davis, I like too. Kind of forgot to talk about him, but yeah, he has upside for sure. And I do like taking these handcuffs here. And if you play Rainmakers on DraftKings, I'd suggest taking handcuffs as well. Like if you pull like a Bijan Robinson in a pack, just buy Algier for super cheap because if Robinson goes down, you're not screwed. Because like if that happens, Algier's price goes way up. So just kind of help yourself there. Just give yourself some it's just like an insurance policy. Round 15, Bryce Young at 169. Kind of surprised that he's being drafted too. 170, Chigi Okonkwo. 171, Xavier Legette. 172, Cade Otton. 173, Justin Fields. 174, Bucky Irving. 175, Daniel Jones. 176, Marvin Mims Jr. I have a billion of his Rainmaker cards. 177, JJ McCarthy. 178, Russell Wilson. 179, Khalil Herbert. 180, Troy Franklin. You mentioned Legette before. He could be the guy in Carolina, not Deontay Johnson for sure. I have no issues taking Chigi Okonkwo if I wait this late for tight ends if like they're all reached for. Okonkwo has from what I've heard, like he's shown up like in great shape at OTAs, so he could have a really good year. Outside of that, I don't see him much I like here. Maybe Herbert as a handcuff. You mentioned taking handcuffs. He could be the guy, but then again, it could be Roshan Johnson as well. Again, Marvin Mims I would like if I didn't hate Denver so much. I think Mims has some potential, but not so much with Bo Nix. Justin Fields is kind of interesting, but he's not the starting quarterback. So, just again, not a huge fan of these guys here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, great. I don't really see anyone that jumps out to me except Xavier Legette, who I absolutely love. Wide receiver 69, nice. So I do think Legette is going to be a guy that I'm going to have on a lot of rosters. I'll take him in the second or third last round everywhere. He probably won't pay off, but if he does, he's going to be amazing because he's very talented. It's just whether he can get separation in the NFL and whether he can star in that offense. Chigi Okonkwo is someone I had lots of last year, and he was really disappointing, even though he got opportunities. They now bring in Calvin Ridley and a heap of other help. I'm not going to be going Okonkwo again. I'd probably go Cade Otton if I'm going one of the tight ends here.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. All right, last round. 181, Juwan Johnson. 182, Jonnu Smith. 183, Wan'Dale Robinson. 184, Ricky Pearsall. 185, Isaiah Likely. 186, Tyrone Tracy Jr. 187, Bo Nix. 188, Braylon Allen. 189, Jalen Polk. 190, Drake May. 191, Roman Wilson. 192, Demario Douglas. Damari Douglas is PPR I'd like a lot more, not so much in standard. Roman Wilson is interesting because the Steelers always draft well at receiver, and so he could be that rookie receiver who surprises this year. Tyrone Tracy, we talked about him when we did our last show. I think there's I feel like there would be some potential there, but I just hate the Giants so much. The Giants and the Broncos are the two teams I really want to avoid, except for Malik Neighbors and the Giants. Everyone else just don't want to have interest in. But the guy who stands out here the most is Ricky Pearsall, because Brandon Ayuk could certainly be traded. Ayuk told Jaden Daniels that the Niners didn't want him back. So if that's true, then he'll be dealt. And then Pearsall will suddenly be the receiver too. You're getting the Niners' second receiver in the final round. That's such a steal. So I think Pearsall is definitely the best option here. But I do suspect his ADP is going to skyrocket, especially if Ayuk's traded. But if you're drafting right now, definitely try to target Pearsall in the final couple rounds. What are your thoughts here?
I love Braylon Allen. I feel like he's one of my favorite handcuffs this year. They've been very clear that they don't like Izzy Banakunda. So if I'm going to do anything, it's probably going to be taking Braylon Allen. If Breece Hall goes down, and that's very possible, especially with that knee issue that he's got, and he's a running back, so they all get injured, Allen could legitimately be a top 12 running back. I do like his upside. He can catch the ball enough. He's good on the goal line. He's going to get valuable touches if Hall's not there. So Allen I like more than anyone else by a lot. I think Pearsall also has a lot of upside for the reasons you talked about. Tyrone Tracy is really interesting as well, but probably more so in Dynasty than in redraft. So in redraft, I'd take Allen or Pearsall. Roman Wilson, I don't mind either.
Mm-hmm. John says Ayuk staged that. Is that true? I don't know much of that situation. I just saw the tweet, so maybe this stage. I don't know, man. I don't know, but what'd you say?
I think it makes sense that he staged it. If he's trying to make a statement, it would make sense that he wanted to get out there. Yeah. So kind of saying to other teams, "Hey, come and get me. I'm cheap."
Yeah, that's true. I mean, who knows at this point? But. It wouldn't surprise me if he did that. But yeah, I mean, there were rumors that he'd be traded anyway, so it's not like this is coming out of the blue or anything. So, all right, I guess that's about it. Thank you so much for everyone for commenting, watching. Really appreciate it. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. Ben, always love doing the shows. Although we have a question here. So Ben, surely you Aussies don't watch hockey.
Hey, we're the hockey world champions. And when I say hockey, I mean actual hockey and not that random thing that you play on ice.
So wait, what are your champions of hockey then?
Field hockey, the actual hockey, okay. The actual game of hockey, which is played by significantly more countries than play ice hockey. We are the world champions in both men's and women's.
I did not know that, so congratulations.
To be fair, we do have a non-professional ice hockey league in my hometown, but it is about as trash as you'd imagine when there's only like 5 skating rinks in the whole town.
I used to play roller hockey. That's the most I played. That was a lot of fun. I used to play goalie. I used to play defenseman. And my goalie days ended. I don't think I was that bad. My goalie days ended where the puck was rolling down and I lazily just put my goalie stick in front of it, thinking I'd stop it, and it hit like a rock or something. It bounced over my stick and went into the net. I was so embarrassed. I was like, come on. And so ever since then, I would just like leap on the puck, even though it was just moving slowly. I would just overreact to it, and people would just laugh. I'm like, no, I'm not. That's not happening to me again. Yeah. Wait, how do you play hockey without ice? Roller hockey is field hockey. It's different sorts of hockey if you don't have the ice.
Field hockey is the original hockey game. It's played on kind of like a soccer pitch sized field, with actual hockey sticks like that, they go up like that, and it's just a ball on grass. And it's the original game of hockey that arrived before they turned it into ice hockey in North America later on.
Interesting. That's weird. Did it start in North America or did it start in Russia? I feel like Canada and Russia are the two hockey powerhouses.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know where ice hockey started. I just know that field hockey was around first, I think. But certainly field hockey is very big in most parts of the world. It's definitely an Olympic sport.
Yeah. Okay. I will do research on the origins of hockey for our next show. This sounds like lacrosse. Is that? I mean, well, lacrosse, like you're like throwing the ball with the nets you're holding.
Yeah.
You know.
But I mean, lacrosse has a pretty small goal. Hockey has a goal that's probably about the size of my room, kind of. Like it's pretty big. It's probably not quite that high. It's probably about human height, but then relatively wide. It's also extremely dangerous. The ball is very, very, very hard. So I know a lot of people who play hockey and they get injuries constantly.
Yeah,
because they don't wear any protection. It's not like ice hockey where you've got protection. You got a ball moving at hundreds of miles an hour and zero protection of any sort.
Jeez, imagine a lot of teeth are lost.
You don't have them if you're playing hockey. You let them go.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's pretty rough. Yeah, John says just Google it. Very interesting. Way better than baseball. Yeah, I don't know how baseball crept into one of the most popular sports. I think it's so boring. It is. I will say this though, like if you want to take a nap, just put on some baseball. You'll fall asleep right away. That's what my dad. That's why my dad was like. I love baseball more and more. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm tired at the end of the day. I just put it on and go to sleep. it's like okay. I guess that makes sense. But I don't know how like people watch it.
Baseball was like a 10-minute highlights video of the game. I'll watch baseball all day. Watch all the highlights videos. I'll never watch it live.
Yeah, it's not bad to go to a game, you know, especially if you're drinking and having fun with your friends. Like, yeah, it's not like too much action you have to pay attention to. But on TV, it is brutal. I don't know how people do it. When I followed the Philadelphia Phillies, like when they were great in 2008, I would have the game on, but I would be working while like I could never just watch the game without doing something. I'd have to I'd be working on my site and have the game on in the background like that. Yeah. That's how I would follow it. But I haven't watched a baseball game in like 13, 14 years. So ever since the Phillies fired their manager, Charlie Manuel, I was like, I'm done. I like because he was such like an old like guy. It reminds you of your uncle. Like he was like such a good guy, and he brought them their world championship, and they got to another World Series and they lost, but still. And then they just fired him out of nowhere, and I was like, I don't like that at all. So I just stopped. I've stopped following baseball.
If you find baseball boring, you should try cricket. Which goes 6 hours a day, 6 to 7 hours a day for 5 straight days. That's one game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, how's that work? What? 5 days?
5 days. Yeah. So basically, everyone in the team bats twice, and you can only get out twice in the whole game for each of your batters, and each batter will score a lot of runs. And you don't score runs by running around base; you just run back and forth. The two of you, just back and forth, and that's how it works. And so it's far less likely to get out, obviously. And so the whole game is very slow. So they've kind of sped it up. There's now like 2-hour versions and like 6-hour versions, 1-day versions, heaps of different variations. But yeah, it is. It's going to be in the next Olympics. In fact, the World Cup's going on, and somehow the US team made it into the second round, and everyone is very confused because they're all like non-professional players and they're beating like professionals. Everyone's like match fixing. It's because it's being hosted in the US. So, there's currently a World Cup for cricket in the US right now, and no one knows about it.
So you said 5-day games. Could it go longer than 5 days?
No, it's limited to 5 days. So there's a certain amount of time you can play each day. It's up to 7 hours with a little bit of extension, and then it's limited to 5 days. And about 30% of games will never have a result. It's because it'll either rain or something else will happen, so you'll end up with a draw. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. I used to work as the scorer on the television broadcast, and that was fun. But gosh, cricket in itself is boring.
Yeah, that sounds awful. When you said 5 days, I'm like, what if it goes to overtime? So like 8 days, like just keep going. But okay.
In the old days, they used to have games that would go 10, 11, 12 days, but not these days. Television does not like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, can you imagine if they started it during the Olympics and like the Olympics are over, but they're still playing? Wait, we have to postpone the conclusion of the Olympics because we're still playing.
The version they're doing in the Olympics is far more watchable. It's all over in 3 hours. So it's kind of like one team bats for an hour and a half, the other team bats for an hour and a half. It's very, very, very entertaining, that version. And no one wears gloves or anything, so it's all except for one player, so it's all like in your hands. So it's pretty spectacular. It's actually really good to watch. I recommend it.
Okay.
For sure, that is.
Maybe I'll check it out. I usually don't watch the Olympics, but maybe because I've never seen cricket before, so I'm kind of curious. Sue asking, do they have bowling alleys in Australia?
It's fair to assume that if there's a sport, Australia's pretty good at it. We had the world champion for 10-pin bowling at one stage. I can't remember his name is Jason someone. I don't know if he's still world champion or not. He was for a while. But yeah, we definitely have bowling alleys, and we have people who are good at it. But we have a very small population, so we only have a few.
Jason Belmonte. Yeah, the Australian professional 10-pin bowler. Yeah. Interesting. He's 40 years old. He's a year younger than me. Is field hockey an Olympic sport? It is now, right?
It's been an Olympic sport for a long time.
Okay.
I know because it's one of the places we get our gold medals from.
I wouldn't. Again, I don't watch the Olympics. I know they have like nonsense like walking. As an Olympic sport, which I always would confuse, like what constitutes.
We're all very good at that for some reason. We win gold in walking all the time. I don't know why. What's the threshold between walking and jogging? Like, I just always like got confused by that. Like, can you walk too fast? Like, does it become jogging? It's funny you say that, but I have been trained in race walking when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and you have to have at least one foot on the ground at all times. And your knee has to be straight as your body weight pivots over the top. So it has to straighten as your body goes from forward to backwards. So basically, as you pivot over your knee, you need a straight knee.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but if you take shots of them, like at the Olympics, they always have 2 feet off the ground. It's the biggest joke.
It does sound like a joke. Like synchronized swimming too. I guess like there is some artistry to it, but like it just seems like why is that an Olympic sport? It doesn't seem like a sport. Yeah.
I don't get it. Yeah, rhythmic gymnastics.
Yeah, the only thing I'm looking forward to is basketball first of all, and golf. And you have Jason Day at least.
And Cameron Smith from my hometown. Cameron Smith, Jason Day, and Adam Scott are all from my hometown.
I forget. I always forget Cam Smith because he went to live. So I'm like, Jason Day's the best, but no, he's Cam Smith is better. At this stage, you have a few good guys. US has, I don't know, like US put Wyndham Clark in over Bryson DeChambeau, which I don't understand that at all. That was, I know like Wyndham Clark won the US Open last year, but Bryson DeChambeau is so much better. Like they could have
consistently good for a long time. That feels like a political decision a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think Liv had something to do with it. So. Okay, I guess that's about it. Do you want to plug your site, which I can pull up now because I know where it is? FFDFantasyFootball.com. I urge you guys to check it out. And also, you have a YouTube channel. I checked out your YouTube, some of your YouTube videos. The one I watched, the first one I watched was when you were talking about kickers and defenses versus like streaming them or like drafting them. And I think you made a really good point about like, you have to look at like what your other league mates are doing and just kind of decide that way. I thought that I'm always like, stream them. But like, I thought you made a great point with those. But you have your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah. Look, definitely check out our YouTube channel. I am posting pretty regularly on that. I went through and did the hit rates of all the positions. I did that last time I was on with Walt as well. So you can check out those if you want more details. Just in the last 2 weeks, I went through every division and I basically did a full 40-minute breakdown of fantasy football for every single division. So you can go through and check out any team. I spent basically 10 minutes on every team, just talking about every player in their position, what you can expect from them. So definitely check that out. The kicker, whether you should stream or not, one's really good as well. So definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. I literally only started it 2 months ago, so any support you can give is always much appreciated. And as always, check out the website, ffdfantasyfootball.com. I am improving the website. I've just hired a website maker dude who can make it look less amateurish, because I did that on Wix.com and it looked awful.
I think that looks pretty good. But we recently revamped our website as well. So I mean, I'm always like, I don't know, I'm always the person who says like I'd rather have content more than the aesthetics. I don't know, but I'm always the guy who never wants his birthday present wrapped. Like, I actually get like mad when like people wrap my birthday present. I'm like, just give it to me in a bag. Like, I don't like plastic bag. I just don't care. So that's always how I handled it. Or paper bag even might be even better. All right. Yeah, Ben, always love having you on. You're a fantastic guest. I can't wait for you to be on again. But we'll be back on Saturday with Tom. We're creeping closer to the Red Wedding. I don't know if we're gonna quite get to that episode yet. But it's I hope that Tom has enough time to watch it. But yeah, we'll discuss everything else. I did post a PGA pick before round 2, so I added it to the 4 bets we already have. I bet Ludwig Oberg at 22-1. He was 14-1 before the tournament. Now he's 22-1. I even said, like, I like Oberg here, but 14-1, not crazy about it. But yeah, he's 22-1 right now, so I bet that. So I just wanted to point that out. But yeah, we're going to get to a bunch of stuff on Saturday, so looking forward to that. But yeah, once again, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store, and thank you so much to John for the 333 super chat. Really appreciate it, John. Thank you so much. We'll be back on Saturday, and I'll talk to you then.